Well, I'm Dave. Back to one of the questions about students and that. Okay. Well, thanks. My nighttime job, I teach in one of our community colleges. On one side of the building, I teach IT. On the other side of the building, I teach OT, operational technology, and I try to get them to talk. Best way to get them to talk to each other. The OT guys will bring Mountain Dew and pizza. So we're going to talk about the detect side. For is to detect anomalies, or it actually finally gets detected by the system, averages about 200 days. And it gets worse. It took them more than a year and a half to detect that. And just as we've been saying here, we're not a very good process-oriented type. Our job as really a part of cybersecurity is to try to help ensure that the system is actually the attacks, if you will, actually people not quite doing their jobs or maybe making a mistake in that, and what you need to do to make things better. Things need to be done at a different level. We talked about target and that. Well, target is a good example of not having a defense. So detect, what do we want to detect? My favorite detection slide there. You know that the system failed because of what the snow's telling you there. There are similarities between IT and OT systems. Malware, of course, is there. That we had is just the virus detectors and that's how Target had failed. The very first step was just succumbing to a phishing attack, and then malware got installed, and the malware is not detected. It could have been stopped. Another common between IT and OT, like we talked about, is multiple failed attempts to log in. If you see somebody trying to log in constantly or continuously for thousands and thousands of times, well, that's probably not good. You want to stop that, at least detect that. Unusual traffic patterns and user activity. We'll talk a little bit more about the differences there. Attempts to cross boundaries, like we discussed, but you want to be able to detect if somebody is on the OT side or some component or system on the OT side, and it's actually talking to something else on the IT side, what's going on there. Some of that will be appropriate. One of the things, for instance, as you identify the different systems, you have to think about the whole process, the whole OT process in general, and one of the things that I think gets missed a lot is printers, which are a lot of times on the IT side, but if your printer goes down, some of the OT operations, like your records and things like that, will go to the wayside. So you have to allow whatever you need to allow, you need to allow. Whatever you don't, you don't. You just have to identify and detect that. One of the main differences, though, between IT and OT is just the nature of the attack. What's the purpose of the attack? For IT, they want all our credit card numbers and that, or they ransomware and that. OT, it's either to help probably damage the system, or at least bring it so that way it's not doing all the functions that it's supposed to do in that. And one of the, as far as traffic goes, OT attacks tend to be very small as far as data traffic. There are millions of credit card numbers. You're just trying to maybe find out what the different systems are, different components are, and it does not take that much to figure out. And then the attack side, it's very short messages, very for commands. OT is a bit different than an IT. IT, you can detect a lot of traffic going on at the wrong bits of time. But in OT, you're looking for maybe some needles in the haystack. But it's important to know then how your system is supposed to work. When we had one customer nearby where, because of the system was supposed to be monitoring, they were monitoring energy usage from cafeterias and schools. And what they found out was because we had a door detector on the freezer door, and it was going off at the wrong times. There was an anomaly there, and then we figured out somebody was actually going in and taking food from the cafeteria. So that's maybe not necessarily a cybersecurity, but it is a security kind of thing. And it came about from not only understanding your system, but some of the things that you can do is not only to detect attacks or anomalies and events, but it's also to help make sure that you're okay. Continuous monitoring. This is not the way to monitor. This is a real picture. It's not a fake picture. This to be able to monitor all your systems. You want to make sure that you keep up to date with everything in your systems, your components. I live in Indiana, and the county across my back fence, which is Michigan. Just last week, they updated their 911 system, and it went kaput for half a day, and that was just updating the system. But we need to keep it updated. We got to make sure you understand what ramifications that might be. Make sure that your configurations are correct. It starts from now in the very beginning, but as things change and people understand how to make configuration changes and the right people, and you want to make sure you use the right tool for the right job, and you configure them appropriately. You can use IT tools for a lot of what we do. We have to understand what how they're going to detect things. Then finally, auto manual. I call it auto manual in that nowadays it's pretty much manual, like going through audit logs and verification of your processes that's supposed to be going on. Audit logs the problem is there's no set standard of what audit logs look like, and we need some tools, some tools on that. You can write some tools, and that hopefully automate that. And verification of processes is the idea that you know how your system again is supposed to work. You can verify that it's working at the right time and doing what it's supposed to be doing. Some of that can come from just and for energy efficiency, and that you can use that if the analytics can show you if your system's working properly or not. And some of that might be, again, like with the cafeteria freezers, if it's not working properly, it might be something that's going on that should not be going on, and someone from the outside or the inside is messing around. So, what else? And then the third thing is, I call it maintaining security. You got to have diligence. You got to keep at it. You got to just never stop. It's never going to stop. But part of that is if you have trouble talking with the C-level people about trying to sell cybersecurity, it's almost like a 2-for-1 sale. You can, or at least for Detect, you can tell them this will help us make sure that our system really is working properly. It's kind of like ongoing commissioning. But then at the same time, you can use those same tools if you configure them right to be able to detect things as well. Additions and changes to the system require security reviews. Whenever the building is a living, breathing system, really, it's always going to change. Might change a little slowly, but it's still going to change. And any change in the system would require a security review as to what that implies as far as identifying systems and protecting them, any changes in that. And then finally, you never stop learning. Some people say you should have we do phishing campaigns internally, so that way people kind of keep learning about how to identify phishing attempts, and some people say you should do that once a month. It might be a little too much, but maybe not. No. But continual training, not only that, but just to identify what needs to be done and the procedures to help with that. So that is detection. And this is the detection for this is a 16th floor in the Hancock building. If you want to go out the door, you'll detect the ground pretty quickly, so don't do that. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. So where do we start? Any sort of good experiences, or bad experiences, anything? This is really where the rubber hit the road, right? So we've done all the identifying things that detect it. Now, how do we detect it?
I think one of the things we do is we try to install our products. And we try to give them, here's how you talk to IT, because they're kind of afraid of that. But it's good when IT sees that, and when IT sees that the OT guys are actually wanting to talk to them about it, then that lowers a lot of barriers. And that's helpful that way.
I would have to agree. I think you've got to have someone on your team that they're educated or whatever, and they can speak to the IT people. That's like 90% of that. If you're afraid of them or you guys are going at it, you don't agree, it's not a good thing. Especially when, something pops up, there's a new malware that just got announced on CNN, and you get like tons of calls. You got to, have that way of talking with them and getting the word out and, communicating.
So the term that I learned through this process of learning about cybersecurity is pen tests. Somebody talk about pen tests?
Again, a little bit, yeah. So take the case of your building products, right? And you have a new product or an existing product, you're doing an upgrade to it. And you haven't released it yet, you haven't deployed it. So you really want to, depending on the changes of where you've made them, you really want to have an outside firm, maybe even inside, do a pen test. A pen test is...
So for those that don't know what it is, what is it?
So it's called a penetration test. So you might, and there are different kinds. There's a black box, they treat it as pushing the buttons, right? Trying to figure out what they can do and not, get into the device. It's very similar. And you can go all the way to you hire somebody, you give them training, and then say, try to do something bad to the system, or try to tell me how, you won the system. So there's multi-levels of pen testing, but it's an effort to either hit something that was not really intended, maybe an abuse, like if you were just to push the button for, 1 hour straight, what happens? That probably wasn't designed in, right? The software guy's gonna say, I didn't know about that use case, or just doing regular operations. So it's just a better, it's not bulletproof, but you'll be more equipped when you deploy it that, you did have a third party, maybe black box, test it, pen test it. It's just a little bit lessens the risk. It doesn't mean it's foolproof.
So anybody actually has seen pen tests being done on a BAS system?
Sure. One of the things that we routinely do is we work with other organizations to pen test our products before we release it and then even after we release it. And one thing that was really great was before we released our Jace product, the Jace 8000, we partnered with the government and they did something called, which was great for us because we were able to fix it and fix everything that they found in that exercise before we released our product. Make your products more secure, and other organizations do that as well, and fairly routinely, and it's helpful. I mean, speaking from a manufacturer perspective, it's super helpful for us because the more we do it, the more secure our products will be, and
have you guys seen a pen test actually in a building that is operating, and who is it done by?
Absolutely. We have some projects here in the US where our products got installed in NSA buildings, and they can't really do that. And we every now and then get some emails, and the guys there, they already know who to approach in my tech, and they're bringing quite interesting information to us, and helps us also keep our products maintained. They do a really good job, actually. Yeah.
I will say one thing, I do caution people about doing pen testing or scanning devices, that they can sit there and scan the product and it'll still be able to function properly. There are some scans that they may cause the device to reset. And again, maybe an operating room, some critical spaces, if you're a pharmaceutical in a clean room, you wouldn't want that. So I always tell people, be careful, and there are a lot of other vendors that give cautions in their literature. Please don't scan or do a pen test on a live system. They can do a bench test okay?
But that is to,
Yeah, I mean, yes, but I think to Charles' point, you also don't want to create a major issue or life safety issue in
Our products pin tested,
Before.
then I would have staff online and knowledgeable of if that controller goes down, how do I put it in hand mode? How do I still get the operating room to stay at 65 degrees or whatever it is, Fahrenheit? Those kind of precautions. I would not allow somebody to do this on Monday morning or whatever. Crazy. Yeah.
And if it's a critical type of scenario where these systems are really supporting critical functions that can affect life safety, I've seen people do red team, blue team exercises where they set up.
Can you explain that?
So red team, blue team is typically the red team acts as the attacker, and they're the attackers of the network, and the blue team are the response folks. And I've seen this work so that they set up a network, another network, a test network with the products, and they go through this exercise of, first of all, how can we attack the system? And I'm sorry, this goes a little bit into your respond a little bit. And then the people on the blue team are like, okay, let's go through our strategy of responding to the attack. And it actually exposes some gaps in most cases. Almost every case, there's some gaps either in the product that needs to be patched or maybe the processes, right? And these can be really helpful when you're managing a system that provides really critical functions that could put people in danger, right? And so in that case, like you don't do it live, but you don't do it to a live system, but you do it to a similar system that you set up. So it really depends on the risk factors that you're involved with, whether you do it to a live system at all.
Give a concrete example of that. There's a pretty significant life safety issues in airports.
Yeah.
So doing live testing on airport systems has some probably negative consequences. And recognizing that, actually Munich Airport has set up a whole information security hub where they replicate the airport systems, including all the building systems. And they do exactly that. They do red team, blue team things, they do penetration tests. That hub is to let any supplier come and put their equipment into that environment and be happy to run against it because they like to try lots of different things. That's a resource for lots of people, funded through the airport's need to have really secure systems.
Right.
I also just give a general warning, if you're gonna do it at your office or your customer site and they're, maybe the facility guy just said, okay, go ahead and scan my system, go ahead and try to pen test it. Just make sure that you're there when he reaches out to their IT department to notify him, because they are very aware of certain tools, of someone, they should be, right, finding where you are because you just plugged in another switch, okay? They should know what's going on, and you'll see, they'll dispatch somebody looking for, we just plugged in that 5-port switch. They're looking for you, right, or wireless. So please don't just, caution people. I have to every once in a while tell people, well, you should let your IT department know, even if you're setting up, just a sandbox to do this stuff.
So I was going to ask a question along that line. That detection clearly can happen on the OT side, but it can also happen on the IT side about OT, right? So what's the dynamics there and experiences, or there's something that, they notice, in real, from a detection of a real incident?
Well, I think Carol just said it, but it's maybe even deeper than that. As we've said pretty much all morning, the convergence here is upon us. We need to stop talking in IT versus OT, where IT is one thing and OT is another. It's right. In IP-based networks, it's the same. And so any of these efforts need to be gone into in a collaborative sense, whether it's commissioning, servicing, penetration testing, evolution. It now needs to be in a collaborative manner so that you don't have to anticipate this. Everybody is talking on the same page. IP or OT. It's just one group.
Right. Go, Toby.
and hospitals have been mentioned a lot. Recently, it's advice to the American Hospital Association to use honeypots of all kinds. Recently, one hospital put in a bunch. Is a device that looks like something else that things are going to come and get to. We've all gone to conferences on a summer day and seen the yellow jackets swarming around the soft drink glasses outside of the trash can. That's a honeypot. And they were using perfusion pumps as honeypots. They weren't actually pumping anybody's drugs into anybody's arms, but they set them up and they found out that CT scanners were arriving pre-infected and then trying to find the devices in the hospital. So you might not be thinking of a hacker, you may be thinking of the other OT that someone just bought that wasn't checked out. And that's part of your attack surface right there, is exposure to things. Oh, we're going to put them all in a if we could talk to honeypots and BAS.
So yeah, we've started to look into and kind of integrate with attackers to the decoys, and we'll alert people like, hey, there's someone, interacting with this decoy. Therefore, like it's a fake system. It's got to be an attacker, and it alerts. One of the statistics, amazing. And so one of the benefits of honeypots is if anyone interacts with it at all, you know that something's going on because they shouldn't be interacting with it. I think it's fantastic. We've been kind of playing with creating OT honeypots. It just in our R&D lab, trying to see how effective they are, these OT honeypots, and we tried using various products, tried to see if they had what was not real, but they had.
On the honeypot, so it's been discussed in my area as well, and my only mess with the honeypot versus being on the phone with somebody. Oh, that wasn't. So sorry you went to the honeypot. That wasn't the system, right? So you got to look at both sides of that. Do you have the support? Is it going to confuse somebody, or maybe it'll cause problems to the customer as well in their system? So because quite often sometimes we get campuses, college kids, and they eventually go where they're not supposed to go. It's called abuse, right? And they don't mean to do a lot of harm, but they try. They can face a page or something like that, or put up a banner that you don't want to put up. So I would say
concern, if you're in the business of providing control systems, you're not thinking about trying to detect what's going on outside the control system, for sure. And it's not even clear you're trying to detect what's going in within, say, even just the BACnet world, if you're all BACnet. So fundamentally, who owns the tech? We're saying we need to do it, but who owns the responsibility for putting in the technology, if you will? Because there's what I can tell you in this industry now, the industrial world's been looking at the tech very carefully ever since 9/11. And in the last few years now, there's good number of companies who are moving from doing work in the industrial side and they're starting to come into our world, the building control side. So there's some good technologies at a more affordable pricing that is very helpful in terms of detecting what's on a network, the things that you don't know about, as well as looking at the traffic patterns. And they're doing it using a passive approach, so where it doesn't take the systems down. So that's the good news. As I'm pointing out, though, who owns it? Who's going to actually implement this stuff on a job? Because at a contractor level, it's not the contractor's job. It really should probably live with the owner. But now facilities folks, how skilled are they at doing it versus the IT folks? So we got a real fundamental problem about who's going to own the tech. Is that not part of the identify thing? Is that not something you should really be doing up front?
I feel it's, again, going back to what's the mission of that particular customer, because, I mean, if it's national defense or they're building gadgets that go with it, they're going to have to do some level of detection or monitoring. Where I'm at, if you just take our commercial building space, mid-level, not even the real complex buildings, who's gonna get paid for this? This is currently not in our specification. So usually, if you can't spec it, or it's not in the specs, you can't get paid for it.
Well, has any of you considered productizing honeypots? That would solve the problem of who pays for it. You've got 40 of our systems on your campus. Would you like to buy a honeypot?
Well, I think it goes even beyond that, just the tech portion. I mean, Carol's right. You set a system statically, almost forget it, right? It's a 30-year building. IT's gonna last 10, 15 years, that sort of thing. But I think, I honestly think there's an opportunity in our industry within the contractor, integrator space to fill that gap. I mean, it's almost automation as a service these days with the ability to connect, do so securely. You can bring a tech component to your system where you're providing that almost as a service aligned with the goals, the IT, OT goals, and cybersecurity goals of the building, the campus, you name it.
So Jimmy said cybersecurity is a good thing.
Cybersecurity is an opportunity.